The Kennedy Space Center.
And we're live.
All right. Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to our Board of Trustees meeting tonight. Before we get into things, I have some announcements. First, Executive Order N-29-20, teleconference flexibility. This meeting is being held pursuant to the procedures established in Executive Order N-29-20, issued by California Governor Gavin Newsom on March 17, 2020. All board members may attend the meeting by teleconference. This meeting will be a virtual meeting only. The public may observe and address the meeting via the instructions in item 2. Announcement number 2, public access to the Ackerman Charter School Board of Trustees meeting. The public will have access to the Ackerman Charter School Board of Trustees meeting via https://bit.ly/Bowman Live. For those individuals who wish to make a public comment, please do so by completing the form here prior to 6:45 p.m. https://bit.ly/ACSD public comments. A moderator for the meeting will read your comments for the record. Number 3, should this board meeting encounter any security breach or inappropriate issues, the meeting will be ended immediately. The Ackerman Charter School Board of Trustees has taken measures to set restrictions and security features to protect meeting participants from inappropriate content or remarks. In the event the meeting is breached, the meeting will end immediately. The board values and welcomes civil and concise communications that inform its deliberations, mission, and vision. Individuals addressing the board are asked to be respectful and avoid remarks that reflect adversely on the character or motives of any person or his or her race, religion, gender, political views, or economic status. Profanity will not be permitted. Speakers heard on a particular subject from a previous meeting will be heard after all new speakers have addressed the board, if time remains. Members of the audience who wish to address the board on items not on the agenda will need to complete the Google form before 6:45 p.m. The board should hear comments from the audience prior to the formal discussion by board members of the agenda topic under consideration. Formal discussion is the board's time to discuss and is uninterrupted. For non-agenda items, regular scheduled meetings of the board shall provide an opportunity for public comment on items not listed on the agenda under public comment. Per the Brown Act, public comment is an opportunity for the Board of Trustees to listen to district constituents. The board may not respond to comments or answer questions during the public comment time. The board may, at its discretion, refer items to the administration for follow-up or place topics on a future board agenda. The board president will call your name at the appropriate time for your comments. There's no podium, but you will have 3 minutes or 6 minutes if a translator is required. The total time for public comment time may be limited to 20 minutes, pursuant to Brown Act, Government Code Section 54954.3a, Board Bylaw 9323. This time, if you will please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, we have a roll call vote. Michael Bellis?
Here.
Mark Hallberg?
Here.
Justin Rednall?
Here.
David Slane?
Here.
Here. All right, at this time we have public comment from items not on the agenda.
Mr. President, this is Julia. I have 3 comments that I'd like to read from our public. Dear board members, I first want to thank you for all you have done to help the students at Bowman School succeed as much as possible during these unfortunate times. I also want you to know how impressed I have been with the teachers. They go above and beyond to always help the students, and they do a wonderful job keeping parents in the loop. I wanted to address a few items that will possibly help the board receive more feedback from parents, but also ask a couple questions about what the future holds. I've been a Bowman parent for 8 years. I have 4 children that attend our school in 1st, 3rd, 5th, and 7th grade. When my first child came to Bowman, I knew nothing. I had to dig and find any information I could to help me understand the difference between BEF, PTO, and the Board of Trustees. I would like to suggest that every school year for new and returning families, some form of advertising goes out to educate families about these organizations. We don't need another flyer in our children's folder, and we don't want an email. Please think creatively. I am currently the PTO president, and I am willing to help make this happen with guidance from each organization. The families not only want to know what each group does, but they want to know who you are. They want to know why 5 people are selflessly spending their time to help a school excel. I would like to ask that what the future holds for Bowman School for the 21-22 school year. Now, I understand that there are a lot of variables in this manner, and we haven't even finished the school year yet. But I also know that negotiations were made in the past for this school year up to this point, and this is why we are not back to school 5 days a week for those who would like to be on campus. What is the correct form for families to have a voice on these decisions? Is it possible to have a small parent-based committee to communicate with the board the feelings and desires of the parental community as well as our children? The current protocol with meeting attendance and writing letters or filling out forms is not as effective as the parental community would like it to be. We want to be more involved. Please take into consideration this request to have a small parent-based committee to help make the decisions for not only the next school year, but other vital decisions as well. This leads me to my last topic, the bond money that was recently received. I understand that this money may already be earmarked for repayment for the initial construction of the gym. However, we as parents would like more transparency as to what the money is going to be used for, and also the ability to weigh in on the decision of where this and any future funds will be spent. Again, the small parental committee could be the voice of families where we feel our kids could benefit the most. Thank you for taking the time to read this letter. Please know this comes from concerns from many Bowman families, myself included. Just like you, we want what's best for our children and want to be a voice that helps in that matter. Amanda Hardman and family. I would like to voice my appreciation for the new schedule at Bowman and the excitement I have for what is to come. Having more hours for in-person instruction and having more normal school hours while distance learning has done amazing things for my family. My kids are happier, putting in more effort, and in return are having better outcomes. I am seeing it click more with my younger student, and my older student actually understands what they are supposed to do each day. Thank you to the staff, administration, and board for taking these necessary and positive steps in our students' lives. I look forward to in-person 5 days a week and returning to a normal school day. Thank you, Rachel White. I want to thank the teachers, board members, and administration for developing and implementing the new schedule. It is clear that this plan was very well thought out and addresses nearly everyone's concerns. My children are much happier and school is going much more smoothly, even on days where we are at home. We know it was no small task and appreciate all that it took to make these changes. Sincerely, the Laniers. Those are the comments for items not on the agenda.
Thank you. Okay. Presentation. Do we have a presentation today? I don't believe so.
No, we do not.
All right. Moving on to the consent agenda.
One thing in the consent agenda, just
for the board's knowledge is the resignation of primary teacher. That was Mrs. Smith, who was on leave that the board granted last year. And it's that time of year where we start working on staffing for next year. So she had to make a decision, and she's decided to resign her position. We wish her luck. She was a great teacher, and like Mr. Byram and myself, a fellow miner from Grass Valley. So she'll do great things in the world, David. So
It's always hard when we lose good ones.
So on the consent agenda, that's an action item.
Does anybody have any questions?
No, I emailed mine in and got it answered, so I'm good. I'll move we approve the consent agenda.
This is Mark Hallberg. I'll second the motion.
Okay, I have a motion by Mr. Bellis, second by Mr. Hallberg. Roll call vote. Michael Bellis,
Aye.
Mark Hallberg,
Aye.
Justin Rednall,
Aye.
David Slane,
Aye.
Rob Congeezer, aye. All right, then moving on to correspondence. Our letter from PCOE.
So this is our first interim letter on budget that we get each year from the County Office of Education. Particular note in this is the third paragraph about the multi-year expenditures and deficit spending. That's based on the 3-year projection from last year's numbers for the most part. We'll talk more about these, how they relate to building the budget currently for next year here later on in the board meeting under the budget item. But this isn't something to be alarmed about. It is something to be aware of, however, and we'll talk more about it.
Yeah, it seems like that's been kind of the standard that we've been hearing the last 2-3 years when this has been, well, even before this all hit. But okay, then moving on to technology report.
Yes, good evening. Okay, so this month is a pretty short report. Just giving you an update on our classroom technology, specifically related to the recent synchronous learning. We did install the new Poly Studio cameras. These are cameras that enable the teacher to basically use them without worrying that the camera is focusing on them or what they want to be showing to the kids online. And from everything that I've observed and from my asking teachers and heard, they seem to be working very well. What's also nice about it is and it really fosters a connection between the kids at home and at school. Teachers have been encouraged to incorporate it into their SEL time and other classroom time so that the kids at home can see the students at school and vice versa. I had an opportunity to talk with one of our parents earlier this week and said that was actually one of the highlights of his third grade daughter's day when she came home. So it's really neat to hear that. We did distribute the Chromebooks to the teachers, the new ones that we purchased in December. I've heard very good positive remarks about those. And last week we distributed styluses to all of the teachers with those Chromebooks. And that will allow the teachers to use the Chromebook more as an instructional tool. It will enable them to use it like a tablet. And I'm planning some professional development opportunities for the teachers to see how to use it in that manner and potentially become more effective using it as a component of their overall teaching, not just as a focus. And lastly, because we switched over to synchronous learning, both myself and Mr. Uribe, my technology support technician, we've been really trying to focus on dealing with the daily help desk tickets. So our priority has been spent monitoring our help desk, monitoring phones, and really trying to address any of those needs because not that it's never been unimportant, but we certainly wanted to ease that transition over to synchronous learning. And that leads into the overall help desk report. You'll see for the months of December and January, we received 214 help desk requests. That is up to 123% year over year, leading to an overall running total of 959 tickets thus far from August to the end of January. And you can see that there's comparatives below that. We've already far exceeded our total from last year. So it's not going to surprise me if we end up with about 2 to 2.5 times the volume that we did in all of our previous years, not combined, but individually. So it just shows the importance of the ability of us as a school and as a technology department to be able to address those help requests, not just from the students and teachers, but from families as well. And thank you.
So just a couple things to add to Ian's report is, one is to thank Ian for finding those cameras and the teacher Chromebooks, because they fold over in half and become a tablet, so the teacher can move around the room and be able to service both the kids that's sitting at home and the kids sitting in front of them. And he worked really hard on that. The second part of that is all of that was purchased through CARES dollars, the CARES stimulus funding from the fall. And so I wanted to make sure everybody knew that that's where that money came from. And it was a perfect fit for that category of expenditure, because it has directly related to COVID. So, but I wanted to give Ian a shout out on that because that took some time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ian. Okay. Cafeteria report.
I have some good news. You look at the bar graph. Are you looking at that Bowman breakfast cafeteria report?
Mm-hmm.
See that bar graph? Those spring numbers are going to be higher this spring than last spring, because we were closed last spring, so we can only go up. So it won't be a lot, but we will make a little more money than we did last spring. So
Good. It's nice to have kids back.
you know, our cafeteria folks, Tracy Canoyer and her sister Kelly, they're just wouldn't know what really, they're just so dependable, and they're always here for the kids, and give them a little props too, because they've had to do a lot of adjusting and give food away all summer, to families and everything else. So they've done a yeoman's job as well. So
Yeah. This whole COVID situation, I mean, the ripple effect that it's had throughout the school, it's far beyond administration and teachers. So,
Kelly, is the percent on that bar graph, is that the percent of total enrollment who are in the
that are purchasing?
Okay.
Okay, we go on to the Kids Club report.
So Kids Club, obviously, we're just open for essential students, families, and we have been all summer. And it was just this last week we had our first case of COVID in Kids Club, so we had to quarantine that for 14 days. It wasn't a student, it was one of the adults. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in the soup report, but it's quarantined for last week and this week, and then we're just going to keep it closed over the break, the February break as well. But they've been working hard trying to offer that service, and it's tough because they're not teachers, And the kids are in there on Chromebooks all day doing their distance learning. And a lot of the teachers will go down to see them and help them. And when they get a chance, it's not ideal, but it's something we're doing for about 40 kids. So it's an important service for a lot of those families.
Yes, it is. And okay, 7.4, the BATA report.
Hello, good evening. Good evening, Bowman School Board of Trustees, administration, staff, and members of the community. As you know, we've been in our updated hybrid model of concurrent live streaming while teaching since January 19th. While there are certainly many challenges to this model overall, things seem to be progressing well. Students are happy to be on campus more, and teachers are pleased to be no longer double teaching every day. And now we have the ability to meet with students more regularly for intervention. We are hopeful that we will now be able to shift our focus and finally finish up the CBA negotiations that began in 2019. There are 2 remaining articles to finish, Article 13 and Article 19, and then our first CBA will be complete. In addition, we look forward to opening up negotiations on salary and benefits with the district for the 2020-2021 school year as well, keeping in mind that although many other districts and bargaining units in the area did complete salary and benefit negotiations for the 2020-21 school year, BATA chose not to negotiate these items last year due to the onset of the pandemic in March of 2020. As always, if you have any questions or would like any additional information, please do not hesitate to contact us. Respectfully, Kane Sussman, BATA President, Donna Lavalure, BATA Vice President.
Thank you.
Donna, this is Mark Halbert. What are Article 13 and 19? What are those specifically?
So Article 13 is teacher observations. It was signed off, but there are 2 appendices that we need to fine tune still a little bit. And then Article 19 is retirement. I forgot the actual title of it. Mr. Sussman, maybe you can help me out here. Retirement benefits, I believe it is.
Yeah, it's either a retirement incentive or retirement benefits. It's been board policy for the last few years, but it's something that we're looking to memorialize as it's a negotiable item.
Okay.
Yeah, for the teachers. And then obviously the board can keep in place what they currently have for the rest of the staff. I mean, clearly that's not an issue of ours.
Great, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
PTO minutes. Zoom meetings.
I wasn't able to attend the last one. Mrs. Wells attended in my place. Kristen, I don't know if there was anything of earth-shattering that's not on the notes.
No, there isn't. They're just looking for new officers because the current president is termed out, or her term is done. So I don't know that she's wanting to do that again.
Okay.
It's been really hard, the pandemic, for them to even have any kind of impact or energy or anything because they can't meet.
Right.
So, and they can't fundraise, they can't have events. So it's been really tough to hold those groups together.
Yeah, I'm impressed that they're still together now, and they've been working to stay that way. It's not an easy thing. And speaking of not easy, Beth.
So I attended this meeting as well, and they are focusing on their May 6th is the big day of giving, which is a national event that nonprofit organizations can sign up with and recruit. So they are people to donate money. They also can recruit businesses to do matching funds. So they're in the planning stages of how to make that happen, and then looking to the staff or parents or the board as to items that we might want to set a goal for. so that it incentivizes parents to donate if they know that there's a goal. And they were looking at setting a $10,000 or I think it was 10,000 or a 25,000 or a $50,000 goal. So something outside of not curriculum, but something that all of the kids can use. One of the things that we talked about at a couple of things that we talked about at our last staff meeting, our copy machine was a big one, our big copy machine. And then another one was the overhangs out front, and to continue those, extend those a little bit. And I'm trying to remember the other one off the top of my head, but I can't think of anything else. So, the field. I'm sorry. Yeah, the field was the other big one. And to continue on with that. So.
Thank you. And the enrollment and attendance?
We're at 562 as far as total enrollment. That's not necessarily our attendance. That's just our enrolled kids,
Right.
which is down a few more. Doing better than most local districts as far as retaining kids and families. But we are down a little bit.
Yeah.
I would agree from everything you hear, all these other districts. When I look at that, Bowman, we're down maybe 6%, which I think is pretty phenomenal considering everything that's going on. So I think we're doing a good job of keeping the kids engaged as much as possible. And I think the numbers show it. So.
Trying.
Yeah.
Certainly unprecedented time. So, okay. Assistant Principal Report.
I have no report this month.
Okay. Superintendent Report.
Just give you kind of a COVID update. We've had 14 total entries this year as far as students or staff with COVID. And we post that report for everybody to see internally, so anybody can see that. In the contact tracing, most of it is from the home, from families. Some is unknown or a family friend. I had a long phone call today with Public Health. Placer County is seeing a huge decrease in the COVID rate. Hospitalization rates are decreasing and no longer impacted, meaning, overwhelmed. Vaccines are rolling out. A lot of the staff here have already received their first dose of vaccine, which is good. They're not sure how it's going to continue to go because the state isn't sure how they're going to continue to do it, really. They've talked about having third-party administrators like Blue Shield run it. Right now it's kind of on a county-by-county basis. Nevada County, as an example, had education days and basically vaccinated all the educators. Got it done. Placer County hasn't chosen to do that. There's about 16,000 people in education in Placer County. And so the way it's rolling out, it's going to take a little while before everybody has both vaccines. They just made an agreement with Safeway today that educators can get vaccinated at Safeway as well now. That just hot off the press, so that should help some. For those of us who have been vaccinated or had the first vaccine, we should stay with the same system we're in. So I think most of us, went to the grounds in Roseville. So we should continue down that path, not stray into another provider. They did 1,300 vaccines yesterday, which is their top number so far. So it is ramping up. So that's kind of our update. I gave you the kids club piece as far as them being quarantined. Our classes seem to be running really well. The cameras, as Ian reported, see the polycams seem to be working well. It took the teachers a while to get adjusted and figure out the best ways to use them and all that. But I'm assuming with the teachers, I don't hear any negatives, so I assume no news is good news. And you've heard a couple of parents a lot happier tonight in their comments to you. So we feel like we're on the right track. We just, trying to, get through another day, right? So, but I wanted to give you some of those updates. Safeway will only do about 60 vaccines a day, 5 days a week, and each Safeway has its own scheduler. There's not like one super scheduler for all the Safeways. Each Safeway you call will have its own scheduler. So if anybody decides to use them. And next week is the February break week, and we're all looking forward to that, I think.
All right, a little bit of time to get things done at home.
Yeah.
All right, 7:10, the board report. Does anybody have anything that they would like to say? All right. Then moving on to 8.1. Do we have any public comments on 8.1?
Mr. President, yes, we have one comment under the budget item 9.2.
Okay. I will get to you when we get there. So then we have JKA's outstanding warrant.
So as the trustees may recall, this is an outstanding request on JKA's part. They carried this amount through waiting for the district to be awarded the bond money. And after negotiations, it was about twice as much, if you recall. We talked about this a few years ago. For Mark and Justin, you probably weren't part of those conversations. But basically, this is for outstanding work in two areas. One is for unforeseen circumstances. And one example I always use is the county made us put in the sidewalk in the front of the parking lot when we redid the parking lot. And then we discovered the sewer line was above the water line, which is illegal. And the county said, man, that's really bad, but you got to fix it, even though we didn't create it. So if you remember, we had to do a bunch of hot taps into the street and all this stuff, and had to give water to the neighbors down here, the Lanards, and hot tap there. And so if you remember, we almost ran out of our contingency funds on all that work. And it became a real headache, at that time. So there was a lot of work that JK didn't get paid for in that circumstance. And then also this this request is for their help in us securing our bond money. When we came back and did a second look, they actually were able to get us an extra $500,000 plus change. The process of that, if you remember, we were working with a lady named Regina. I don't know if you remember her coming to the board meetings. Well, she left the firm, and we were kind of left hanging. And so she had all that documentation, and then her boss took it over for about a month, and then he shipped us off to this other gentleman in this other firm. And really, it was Derek Lebrecht that kind of shepherded a lot of that for me, because I wouldn't have known all those machinations. And just being honest. And so, I'd made the board aware of this a couple years ago, that this would be coming once the bond money got released. And so I am recommending we pay this, close that chapter, have good relations with not only a parent, but a local firm that's here in our community, and wrap up the last payment the gym. He also helped on the sidewalk piece of helping me, fight that battle as well a little bit, which isn't in this bill, but just so you know, that kind of happens. So if there's questions or comments, we can talk about it, debate it, but that's my recommendation to kind of close it up and be done.
Any comments?
Mike here. I don't disagree with what Kelly said. Despite the difficulties we all kind of went through during that time, Derek did bring some value in a lot of different ways to the whole process. And there was a lot of finger pointing and stuff like that going on between the agencies and stuff. And based on, Kelly's recommendation, I'm okay with making the payment for that particular purpose.
Thank you, Michael. In a perfect world, everybody, I think, we'd be, nope, this is the contract, we did the job, and that's it, and da-da-da. But I still think we're a little bit of hometown kind of thing, and words matter, and handshakes matter. And, we did all our Prop 39 work, all our new ventilation systems and heating systems and all that. Derek had a big hand in that, and that was basically an at-cost job for us that he did. Also the master plan and a lot of that work. So just to kind of reiterate.
I remember it seems like about 6 months or so ago that there was a letter from someone involved with the grant application who really said that Lebrecht did a phenomenal job in securing that additional amount of funds.
Correct.
So from where I sit, it seems like they did quite a bit of work, and that actually Bowman has perhaps received additional bond monies because of that, the additional work they did.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where you don't know for sure because you don't know, and you'll never know. But I know because I know what my limited scope was in dealing with OPSC and Office of School Construction down there. And my job, once he kind of got us all set up, was I was just the bird dogger, emailing them every other week and calling them and going, when's the money coming? It only took 5 years, but it came. So.
All right, so this is an action item.
David, anything from you?
I agree. We should try and maintain a good relationship with Derek. We're that kind of a school. He has children here, I believe, still.
Yep.
And and I think we're committed to that, maintaining the relationship. So it was a challenging project. There were shortcomings on every end. So I agree.
Well, in that case, I'll move we approve the JK outstanding warrant.
This is Justin Rednall. I'll second.
All right, motion by Mr. Bellis, second by Mr. Rednall. Roll call. Michael Bellis.
Aye.
Mark Hallberg.
Aye.
Justin Rednall.
Aye.
David Slane.
Aye.
And Rob Congeezer. Aye. Wonderful. And moving on to 9.2. 9.1. Not there yet. Board member visitations.
So, a couple things, yearly, typically the board will come visit classrooms or visit staff and talk with them and get a pulse of the school and what the, things that are going on. We still want to have that happen. Ideally, I would ask the board to wait till a little later in the spring and hope, we get more into the orange and yellow tiers. But would also encourage the board to come in my office or Kristen's office, and we can log you into a class and you can be a virtual member at any time. We would love for you to do that. And I'm sure the teachers would like to see you in that mode as well. And that way everybody's safe. But you don't need an invitation to come on campus either. So if you want to come on, and just all we ask is everybody wears a mask and tries to do as best they can with the social distancing and that kind of thing. So we're hoping that you guys will reach out to Kristen or I and maybe come in to sit with us, and we'll log into some classrooms you could visit virtually for right now, and then maybe in the spring when it warms up and more vaccines are out there and it's feeling a little more safe, hopefully we can get you into the rooms in person.
Sounds good. Okay, now 9.2.
Mr. President, I do have one letter from a parent that I'd like to read in regards to budgeting. Dear Board of Trustees, my name is Maren Whitson and I am a parent of a second and fourth grader. I want to thank the board, administration, teachers, and staff for all of their hard work this year. We feel that the school has struck a good balance of providing additional time at both school both in the classroom and online, while also maintaining its commitment to following COVID precautions. Our kids love getting to be at school a little longer, and we are all appreciating having a consistent schedule each day. Our two kids' teachers, Mr. Moses and Miss Damati, have been totally awesome. From our perspective, the transition to the new model was entirely seamless. We can only imagine how much work it has taken to pull that off, and we appreciate all of their hard work. I see that you are starting to talk about budget planning and priorities for next year. I am writing to ask that you make sure that reopening the library is in next year's budget. Having a functional library run by a full-time staff person is something that sets Bowman apart from other schools in the area. And in a normal year, it is really important part of the kids' experience at Bowman. I was a volunteer in the library last year, and I saw firsthand each week how much kids love coming to the library and being able to pick out books that interest them. It is so important to provide kids as much access to books as we can to help instill a love of learning. And I hope that this will continue to be a priority for Bowman. It has been an enormous challenge for many families this year to provide books for their kids in the absence of having access to classroom libraries and the Bowman Library. I have been in touch with Mr. Graham a few times about this and understand the reasons that the library is not currently open. Moving forward, I hope that reopening the library will become a priority again soon. If not for this school year, then definitely for next school year. Thanks, Maren Whitson.
Okay. Are you presenting us with the?
Yeah, that's me. So I'll start with that. Right now in the assumptions, it's in there, and I told her that as well. So, but she's just doing a nice thing of advocating, so that's fine. But I'll let you know that is in there in the assumptions page currently. It's a little different this year than what we would traditionally be doing right now with you. We'd be able to give you some hard numbers and some things typically where you'd have a pretty good idea of the direction we're going. But this isn't a typical year, as you know. So I'm going to kind of give you some information, and then maybe we can have a little discussion. As you know, the governor comes out with his proposal, budget proposal in January. And he kind of had a reopening of school plan attached to that with grants and safety plans due by February 1st to get the grants and all that. Well, that's already died and passed because we're past February 1st and nothing happened in the legislature on that. And the legislature right now has a lot of skepticism of his budgeting, and they're kind of all not hiding, but they're not out there supporting them real loud because they don't know how this recall is going to go. He currently doesn't have any early action to eliminate last year's deferrals. If you remember, they deferred half of this year's money to next year. He has some bookkeeping tricks that he's doing to pay off those referrals in over 2 years, but he doesn't have anything in his proposal right now to pay them off immediately, even though the state has revenues much larger than they projected they would have. And just the other day, he came out and said, "Hey, we just found another 10 billion we didn't know about." It was probably in one of the prisoners' wallets in jail that took all that unemployment money. But anyway, the pandemic hasn't hurt the one percenters. You know, where the California makes most of its tax revenue is off the rich. And it's off their stock market dividends. That's where California makes their money. The economic impact has been on the low wage earners, the hospitality, leisure sectors, and middle income, low income workers have been hit much harder. The governor in his budget proposal has a big warning shot. He's fired for the next 2 years, not this year. He's looking at large structural deficits in 22, 23, and 24, 25 of roughly $11 billion. And a lot of times you'll hear these talking points in the media or on the news, and you'll say, yeah, we have put a budget together that almost $20 billion for K-12 education. When you break it down, about 16 billion of it is in grants, wellness programs, workforce expansion, new TK classrooms, and underperforming school districts. About 2.2 billion, which is the COLA, about 3.84% COLA, is what we'll get. It's what most of the schools are slotted to get. The rest of it, even though it sounds like a really nice number, it's not really attainable for a small rural school like us. Moving on here. So there is some good news with that COLA adjustment, and some good and bad news here. So the good news is in his proposal, if it holds, we would be slated based on last year's enrollment of about 7, roughly. I'm giving you rough numbers here because I just take because they fund K3, 4, 6, and 7, 8 differently. So I just add them up and take the average number and divide it by the amount. But we're looking at about $750,000 of new money coming in from the state. And it looks like we got approval. In the past, we've always had to use our current year's number, which, as you know, is down, our enrollment number. But it looks like they are allowing us to use last year's number, which is really good for 1 year because that's a higher number of enrollment, right, at P2. So we're going to probably get about $750,000 of new money in just the COLA. So that's a good thing. We did deficit spend last year of $139,000, as the letter from the county said, and our projections based on the budget numbers we were given last year by the state and by PCOE. We had a 3-year projection where it climbed up to $538,000 of deficit spending in 23-24. Now I'm going to tell you those projections, you might as well just throw them out now because everything is upside down, and it's upside down for a couple of reasons. One is the schools have been kept afloat with a lot of federal CARES Act dollars, and that's what we use to buy these cameras and the tablets for the teachers and these things, and actually done a lot of other things. You know, we've given some extra days off in the contract for COVID and things like that using the CARES dollars. Well, we don't know exactly where that cutoff happens and where we start using our own budget, our own funding at this time. We've tried to fund as much as we could that we would into the CARES dollars and save our own money that we were already budgeted, because we thought we were working on, well, we not thought, we were working on half of a year of a budget because of the deferrals for half the year from the state. So what we tried to do is, and Ann has done a phenomenal job with this, if we've tried to funnel all our expenses, as many as we can, into the CARES dollars, so we could take that half year of funding and stretch it over this whole year, if that makes sense to you. So we don't know where that's all going to drop out yet, at the end, of where, if we're going to be upside down or right side up. But we're working really hard on trying to make sure that we use all those dollars first. There isn't a hold harmless for ADA going forward like there was this last year. So your ADA this year could come back next year's budget cycle, when you're back here at this time next year, to really bite you unless the enrollment comes back. So that's something you're going to want to keep track of, right? Because if you get to choose the better of 2 years, well, this year right now it's at 562 and you're using 570, whatever the number is we're going to get to use. That's a loss of revenue. So that's something next spring you're really going to want to watch, because they're not doing a hold harmless on that. The governor did reduce our CalSTRS contribution by 0.23% this year. So that's a little bit. But to offset that, our increase in our CalPERS contribution is up 3%, and it's slated to go up as high as 27.6, and right now it's at 23% of every paycheck. So those are just, it's, they give you the money, then they just take it back, basically. They're saying, here's the money, now pay us for it, for getting it. One of the things that we're having to keep an eye on is the county had sent us a letter instructing us to up our reserve to approximately 17% in case of financial hardship. Right now, we've always had it at 10, and they're suggesting it be up to 17% to mitigate revenue shortfalls that might be unanticipated. Now, this letter was sent out before this last $10 billion was found by the governor, and before Joe Biden was elected. And we don't know what the impact of this $1.9 trillion stimulus package might be to schools. One of the big fights with the Trump administration was that they didn't want to bail out red states. Trump didn't. And obviously that's not going to be the case with this, because it's a massive, massive spending bill. And we throw around numbers like trillion like it's nothing. If you spend $1 every second, it would take you 32,000 years to spend $1 trillion. Well, that's how much a trillion is. So, and we're 25 trillion in debt as a nation. So, anyway, I'm uneasy about the future. Fiscally, as far as the economy, I think the district's in pretty good shape right now, better than most. But I think what's going to happen is, with all this soft money that the feds are pumping into the system, they're going to pay for student loan debt. They're talking about $3,600 per child per family that makes less than $75,000 getting a credit over a year's time, $3,600 per kid. They're talking about the stimulus checks at $1,400, minimum wage going up across the country to $15. Interest rates already started to climb this week. I think you're going to see a massive amount of inflation over the next 3 years, and you're going to get much higher interest rates, because they'll try to curb that with the interest rates. And then what that'll do is that will make it tougher for school districts to borrow money to meet their cash flow responsibilities, because when they raise interest rates, people they stop spending money, so then they don't have the tax revenue, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it's all cyclical. So word of caution is down the road. But for your budget for this year, getting back to that, is we just don't know yet what the numbers are going to be to build our budget on, because we don't know what the governor and the legislature are going to agree to. We don't know how much money is coming from the feds in this stimulus package that's being debated in Congress right now. We have our assumptions. We don't have a lot of cuts or anything in the assumptions right now, because that wouldn't be prudent to make cuts right now, and we don't know. We can get through a year regardless if they made big cuts. We don't anticipate that, but it sounds like the 2 out years the governor's projecting structural deficits. So, Ann, is there anything you want to add to that?
I think you covered it quite well.
Okay. So, anyway, so questions or comments. So that's kind of your budget update. We're working on it, but it's just so innocuous. We just don't know what the numbers are they're going to give us to play with yet.
So, Kelly, so where does, the bond money that, one, do we know when we'll actually receive it? And two, generally, where are you looking for that going in the budget? Will that go into reserves? Will that?
Yeah, so that's a good question, Mark. So we've received it. Right now it's in Fund 40, which is the construction fund. And my this is just how I am. I'm conservative with money. At least I think I am. I try to be. The district spent about $2.8 million on the construction and then took out a loan for the rest of it. And you got about, I think, 3.1 in the bond money. My thought, at least while I'm here, is what I would like to do is I want to just put it back to the reserve, and then I've kind of done my part and made everybody whole, and you got the gym, and I sail off in the sunset, and it's your problem. But but I think we got to be careful, because it's like, all right, we got new money, but we really don't have new money for the most part. Sure, you're going to want to spend some of it on some priorities. Like the previous board, their priority was to get the field done. I mean, that's obvious a goal. Obviously, you have labor negotiations. You're going to have to spend some money there. You're going to have to spend some money maybe on updating some other facility things. But at the same time, that's the money you're going to use for cash flow if the governor or the government turns around and there's another outbreak or another whatever, and they decide to do another set of deferrals. Remember, that's the money you were going to use this spring, but before we knew we got all that CARES money, the CARES Act dollars. If we didn't have those CARES Act dollars, all these cameras, all the mitigation we've done, all the masks, the PPE, all that stuff would have been coming out of the general fund reserves, all of that. And so if you remember last year, we trimmed from the budget about $120,000 in personnel, because we were expecting to be so lean this year with funding. And now it's kind of turned around on us, but it's one-time money, so I don't think the board has to feel pressure to go out and spend their bond money, because it's really money that you're just putting, in my opinion, you put back into your general fund for the most part, and you use it like you were using it all along before you did the building. Use it, for reserves. You use it to meet that thresholds the county puts you under. You use it to take care of your facilities. You use it for your staff where you can, those things. But don't confuse your reserve with your budget. Okay, those are two separate things.
All right. Thanks, Kelly.
Yeah. So I don't know if there's any other questions on budget.
It's ironic. It wasn't many years ago that the state was saying you can't hold too much in reserve. Now they're saying up your reserve to 17%. So
Yeah, well, so that's the county, and David, you're right. That's actually a law for large districts. Small districts, they didn't make us do that. They didn't make us spend. I mean, because it just, you don't have enough to spend. I mean, one lawsuit,
yeah,
and the board traditionally, this, the Ackerman School Board has been, you've been frugal, fiscally conservative with having these 10% reserve accounts for special education, for potential litigation, et cetera, et cetera. And we dipped into all those to do the construction. So, my recommendation is get those back to those 10% and then go from there. But you're right, David. I mean, I think the COVID pandemic thing, you just, and I'm getting cynical as I get older, if you can't tell, but I think their messaging is terrible. I think it's all over the place. It's never consistent. One day it's you're not opening, and the next day, depending on who the governor's talking to, oh, you better open. And it's like, well, it just, there's so inconsistency. And the budget information right now is no different, because everybody's waiting to see how much more money we're getting from the feds. And it all feels great, because you got this free money coming, right? But it's like, it's not reality, because it's really one-time money. It's going to help you in the short term, but in the long term, at some point, it's like a rubber band. It's going to go back to what your funding should be. And then you got to be able to project out, that you can afford to, have the nice car and the nice house and the guest, the cottage at Tahoe and or whatever you want, a new field or this or that, it's all about choices. But right now it's hard to tell you what the budget's going to even look like, because we don't know what the funding's going to look like. So,
yeah, and Kelly hit it on the head with the one-time comment. I mean, this through the years, it's just been the basic philosophy. One-time money is for one-time expenses, and as long as you don't get away from that, you can budget accordingly. And you look at some of those districts that have gone under, is they haven't followed that little philosophy. They take their one-time money and use it for ongoing expenses, and then guess what? In a couple of years, they don't have any money left, and that's bad for everybody. So it's kind of a basic philosophy, but it's served this district well for a long, long time, and this is something I'm passionate about, and I think we just kind of got to keep in our mind when we're choosing this money. I agree with Kelly about refunding, putting all that money back to where it came from. We got a little bit extra there. So yeah, we'll have some opportunity to talk about some one-time expenses that we might feel would be, the most appropriate, for some of those funds. So thanks to Kelly for a lot of this, his contribution for this whole process, from a budget standpoint, his skill was much appreciated.
Thank you, Michael. So we'll keep updating you each board meeting as we get more information. It's just, talking with Ann, it's like 1 minute, she's figuring the budget, calculating this and pulling numbers all over the place. And then she'll get an email saying, oh, hold on, that we got some more information coming. And it's just, it's constant. It's constantly changing right now. And the pandemic's the cause of all of it. So we'll keep you updated.
Thank you. Any other comments? All right, then 9.3 minimum wage increase.
So as you recall, you've voted on this a couple years ago. The state mandated within 3 years every employee had to be making at least $15 an hour minimum wage. So I'd asked at that time, if you recall, do you want to just have everybody go to 15 right now, or do you want to roll it out over the 3 years? And you guys voted to roll it out over the 3 years. And this is one of those installments for these people. So we're asking you to approve this revised salary schedule for the classified folks this affects. This doesn't affect teachers. It's some of our classified employees. And eventually, so next year, everybody will be making by next year, end of next year, $15 an hour. And heck, the federal government might mandate it sooner than then anyway.
Right.
I'll move we approve the minimum wage increase and the revised salary schedule as it was presented.
I'm going to recuse myself from this because I'm not sure how this affects my wife who works for Bowman. So I'm going to excuse myself from the discussion and from the vote from this. And that's Mark Hallberg.
This is Dave Slane. I'll second the motion to approve 9.3, the adjustment for minimum wage.
Motion by Michael Bellis, second by David Slane. Roll call. Michael Bellis.
Aye.
Justin Rednall.
Aye.
David Slane.
Aye.
Rob Congeezer, aye. And just for record, Mark Hallberg
Abstains.
is abstaining. Okay, thank you. And then on to 9.4, summer school.
This is summer school for our special ed population that qualify for what is called extended school year, or ESY. This is just a formality that we have to have board approval each year. You do this each year. So we're recommending that the board approve ESY for our special ed population. And while we're on it, some of you will probably have conversations or have been thinking about learning loss. There's not a plan from the state yet on learning loss and making up work and making up, everything that's been lost during the pandemic. And we as a staff, as a whole staff, teachers and administration, we've been talking about it, but we don't know yet either. So just as a side note, but this is something we would have regardless, because it's in the students' IEPs or special education learning plans, and it's something we need to approve. So I need a motion.
Okay, you've got one. I move we approve ESY-/summer school as presented.
This is Justin Reynolds, second.
All right, motion by Mr. Bellis, second by Mr. Rednall. Roll call. Michael Bellis.
Aye.
Mark Hallberg.
Aye.
Justin Rednall.
Aye.
David Slane.
Aye.
And Rob Congeezer, aye. Okay, then 9.5, the proposed school calendar.
Yeah, we're going to pull that for tonight because it hasn't been finalized with the teachers yet.
Okay.
Mrs. Wells is meeting with them, I think, again on Friday. I thought they were done when I put it on there, so my apologies.
No problem. 9.6 then, annual review of the BP 6145 extra and co-curricular activities.
Another boilerplate thing you do every year. Obviously, we're not having any co-curricular or extracurricular activities, but it's a board policy, and it's in your packet. You could, some light reading there, but it talks about eligibility requirements, student conduct, while they're playing the sport, what the competition's for, all of that. So it's something we approve every year.
So moved. Mike Bellis making a motion on 9.6.
This is Mark Hallberg. I second the motion. Oh,
Mark, second. Okay.
All right, motion by Mr. Bellis, second by Mr. Hallberg. Roll call. Michael Bellis.
Aye.
Mark Hallberg.
aye.
Justin Rednall.
Aye.
David Slane.
Aye.
And Rob Congeezer, aye. 9.7, safety plan.
Okay, well, there's actually 1, 2, 3, 4 of them there for you to approve in one item. It's a COVID year, and so you have the COVID written report, which is on our student accountability report card. It's also posted on our website. You have the COVID prevention plan, which was required by the state in January for us to complete. You have the IIPP, which is a OSHA required plan that they came out with in January that we had to complete by February 1st and was required by a school's insurance group. And then you have our yearly safety plan, which the COVID prevention plan is also a sub-plan of that. And that's why your board packet's so thick. So these were done to meet those requirements. We took most of our agreed upon language in our MOU, and I say most because I'm sure there's something missing, but we took it directly from our agreed upon MOU and put it in there. So like all the things that we're doing right now as far as masks and travel pass and hand washing stations and separate cohorts, and I mean everything we did in the MOU we put into the COVID safety plan. So we are asking for you to approve it tonight, and that way we can send the safety plan to the county, because they have to approve it in March and send it on to the state.
Okay.
Well, I will move.
Go ahead. Somebody do it.
I will move to approve item 9.7, the safety plan, IIPP plan, COVID-19 school guidance checklist, and the COVID-19 prevention plan.
David Slane seconds.
All right. Motion by Rob Congizer, second by Mr. Slane. Roll call vote. Michael Bellis,
Aye.
Mark Hallberg,
Aye.
Justin Rednall,
Aye.
David Slane,
Aye.
Rob Congizer, aye. All right. Future agenda items. The board meeting on the 10th of March. Beginning work on the LCAP. Did it ever stop?
So hey, Kristen, I forgot what was the one we did in September? You did in September?
The learning continuity plan.
Yeah,
The
LCP.
learning continuity plan we had to do because we didn't do an LCAP last year because we were closed in the spring. So we thought we were off the hook. Now we have an LCAP and we have a SIPSA plan we got to do. We have multiple CARES funding audits we got to do. And we just did the consolidated application for the state. The state never ends. We just keep writing stuff. So
Yeah, it seems like they keep adding more, but they never take away. So
yep.
all right. Well, thank you all. There's a potential study session on the 24th.
I don't see a need for one at this time.
Okay.
But I could see maybe after the March meeting there might be one.
All right. Well, thank you all for joining us tonight. We will be adjourning to closed session. So 8:13. Thank you.
If anybody wants to take a little
See you
break,
over there.
use the restroom or anything, and you can log into the other. Thank you, everybody.
So can we take 5? What are we
Yeah,
taking?
take-
5?
Take 5.
Okay.
Bye.